My name is Ariel. I am a Filipino woman. I have tan skin and I have long dark hair that goes past my shoulders. I also have my fiddle leaf ficus in the back of me. Um, I'm also just recently finished my master's in sustainability leadership from Arizona State University. And so I'm here to learn more and connect with people like Smiley to learn more about what they're doing and how we can um, just be more involved with environmental justice work. Oh, thank you, Marnie, for fabulous. Okay, I guess people were listening to our conversation, Smiley.
That was Marnie.
And
Marnie's a basic film commissioner. I work with her.
oh, I see. Okay, great. But yes, we are, let me see. But I want to introduce Smiely Khurana when we're excited to get started. So, did you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Smiley. I am, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm coming to you from my home in Vancouver on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. I'm wearing this, I think it's a green-blue shirt. Behind me is just a wall. There's nothing exciting. I have long, dark black hair. And I'm South Asian. And yeah, my background, or is that what I should just? I am the Real Green Sustainability Lead. So Real Green is an initiative here in British Columbia. It's part of the BC Film Commission, where we lead sustainability province-wide, and we work across Canada to advance sustainability and work with our industry stakeholders and productions to work towards a circular economy and reduce our impact and try to fight for systemic change. To sum it up.
Good, but I'm gonna ask. I think we have a poll, and if everyone can see a poll, so there's if you go on your right side, there's chat polls, people's, and Q&A. But there's a poll that we have, and so the question is, how do you feel about integrating climate action in your work? And so this is for the audience. So if everyone could please select an answer. And if not, that is okay as well. I'm not sure if everyone can see that poll on the right. Can you see it, Smiley?
I can. Should I go into
Okay.
results? Oh, okay. Show results.
Do show results?
Was interested but unsure how to do. Was one vote for that.
Oh, okay.
Was
But yeah,
interested.
I'll ask you, what do you say when someone isn't unsure what to do in how to integrate climate action in your work?
No, and this is describing my daily job is working with, and that's totally fair. Not to what we talked about sort of when we were just chatting away about that guilt or that unsurety of how to approach this, and so people sometimes just kind of back away and they decide okay, I'm just not going to because they're not sure what the right way is. I think the way is every action matters, right? Anything that you're doing, and I think we had this chat in our main conversation and just conversations I have on a daily basis is yes, there's that systemic change that we're working towards and that top level, top down, but each day the actions we are taking, whether it's just skipping that plastic bottle or thinking about consuming whatever it is, before we're purchasing something, that's it. That's all it takes. It's that everyday mentality of what you're doing. And what I said, Amir said, and I keep saying it because it stood out to me. Every job can be a climate job, right? So yeah, I think, and then also if you're not sure, ask. Right? Not to feel ashamed or guilt or embarrassed too. I don't think there's always the right way. There's multiple ways of doing things, and just getting started, I think, is the way. And yeah, I think even people I work with, in our industry here, I understand like everyone isn't an expert in sustainability, and neither am I. I'm not an expert of what it means. I'm just someone that's like voicing these concerns and solutions. But I work like 98% of the industry. This is not their background. Their background is like whatever their respective field of work is. But it's how do we integrate into your daily lives and work? And that
No.
answers.
No, that's great. Yeah, I feel like asking questions is one of the best ways. I always think like if you don't ask, you never know. And like if like I've definitely been in situations where I've had, I've worked at a place and I wanted to incorporate sustainability efforts. And it can be hard, right? Because it seems like a push, especially if they're not on board with it right away. But what I also try to do is like I try to find like-minded peers and within my coworkers, right? And really push for it. Okay, so we have a couple questions that I'll ask you. And so my first question is, so climate change is a crisis and an emergency, but is also important for people to feel that we can save each other from climate disasters. How can we ensure in our climate change messaging to communicate this urgency, but also maintain hope? Which is I feel like we also talked about this earlier.
Yeah, but so it's a big question. It's big because it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing issue, ongoing discussion. But one way like referring to the film industry and like our role. This is the Hollywood Climate Summit, but like even in my day job, it's normalizing these behaviors and principles on screen in our storytelling and sharing like what our characters are doing to normalize what we should be doing or to model what we are doing or advocating for. And that hope, I think that's a huge thing too. So when I used to work on set with people directly, I always try to stray away from shaming or guilting or accusing or any of the negative, because there always are negative connotations to this kind of work. Like, oh, if you're not sustainable, or if you're not like, championing this, then shame on you. And kind of support. It's like, okay, what's stopping you? What's holding you back? How can we support each other and figure this out together? And then that sense of community and, like you said, finding like-minded people, like finding your champions. I had that through the podcast I ran. I started that podcast during the pandemic when we were in lockdown, all at home, isolated, and I wasn't able to have these conversations or meet people. And so through that, I was able to find a community of change makers around the world, and that inspired me. Every conversation I had brought hope, because you see so much of the negative impact that the world is facing and what we are contributing to. It can get so draining and so exhausting, and I would have nights where I just would break down and I would cry because I'm like, oh, the work I'm doing is not enough considering how much is happening in the world. Like I would watch a documentary and then feel terrible because I didn't feel like I was doing enough, and that's exhausting, right? And so finding your champions and really having those hopeful conversations and doing your part, I think, not to neglect that. And so I don't know if that answered the question, but
No, it does. I like how you said, or you're very transparent that I love watching documentaries and you feel inspired for sure, but then you're like, what am I doing, and wanting to do more. And I've had to realize, especially with this past year, is that I'm not able to do everything all at once. And it's fun. And I always trust my journey. And I feel like, we're always comparing, right? We're always comparing ourselves. Like, what is that person doing and this person? And just really it's okay. Like, I think self-care is, especially through this pandemic and through this, it's like always completely necessary. But I did want to ask you, I would love to hear more about your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. So yeah, like I said, I started it during the pandemic because I was working as a sustainability coordinator on set, and I was having those daily conversations about and it was inspiring. I loved going to work every day and trying to make that production more green. And and those conversations I would have with the champions I found on set. And then when we went into lockdown, I was missing that. And so through the podcast, I started, it's called the Sustainable Act, just basically, daily actions we're taking in our life, and meeting with people in our film industry, but also just like, businesses, vendors, champions, and sharing like their voice and the message. And what I found inspiring, or the best compliments I would get, would be, oh, I didn't know much about this movement, or I didn't know much about sustainability. And it's funny I use the word sustainability, and we use that because it's such a broad term. Like, what does it mean? But it has connected to environmentalism. And people would they would come to me after saying, oh, like, because of your podcast, because of your social media page, I was able to like learn more about the people in this movement and learn more from them, and just to change them in their jobs and their day-to-day lives. So that was something that I felt like, again, I was just a kid with the mic and recording in my bedroom. Like, it wasn't like anyone can use their voice. Everyone has a platform. And you have the power to make change. You don't need to be, you don't have to have a large following. You don't need to have I don't know, whatever success means to you to really make an impact. It could be every single person, and through any medium that, that works for you. It doesn't have to be podcasting or social media, but that's what the podcast is.
No, I'm glad you mentioned all of that, because I really think that, a lot of people, and I will say that about me myself, like, I have my opinions and and my passions, and, sometimes you're like, who's going to watch my stuff? Who is it going to impact? And it's like, well, you're never going to get it, influence anyone or impact anyone if you just keep it to yourself. And so I really like that you found your, an avenue of, through podcasts, to share, to speak your truth and share your story. And so it's really inspiring.
I was doing that before anyways, like even when I was in university still, and I learned about the impact. I went to my class and went to my instructors, went to the program, directors. I'm like, this needs to change. And I just spoke up, and I saw that, like, I changed my show, like the next show I produced. But then I found more people started taking like what they saw from my production and started bringing into their productions, and it was like a ripple effect. And so it just, when we went into that lockdown, like the barrier was like being present and being like there in person to voice that your concerns or voice your opinions. And so I just found a different outlet, I guess, to continue that messaging. And anyway.
No, I'm glad. I like how you said that, that people would take stuff that they got from you and then incorporate it into their own work. I feel like a lot of people forget that, we're not competing against one another. If anything, we're competing against ourselves, right? And so I always say, like, say if I didn't get a job at one place, and that's okay, because I was like, I know we're still all fighting the good fight. And I think it's really hard when we're so, comparing ourselves, but it's just like, you're the biggest challenge is, competing with yourself and not others. Okay, so I have another question for you. It says, climate change impacts people of color, women, and low-income communities the most. Yet, these are the very people often missing from mainstream conversations about climate change. How do you tackle this issue in your work?
Oh. I love this question because this is something I'm so passionate about, and even when I first got started in this like whole movement, world, whatever we want to call it, like just having that like a moment, everybody I looked up to, or any panel, any conversation I watched, any event I went to, I always saw it was just the same people as white people, and I never thought about that before. And sometimes you would see like maybe one BIPOC person on the panel, and I just did a panel, you recorded it yesterday, for the Vancouver International Film Festival on climate action and sustainability in film, where 4 to 5 people were people of color. 4 to 5 panelists on that panel were people of color. And we brought up that, our connection, our background, our culture into the conversation. It kept coming up naturally just because of how connected our cultures are, and like how we talked about, it's all interconnected, whether it's the practices we grew up with, whether it's the things we've learned from our elders, or how our behaviors and how it's affecting us most. It just kept coming up naturally throughout the conversation, even though we were talking about like our industry and our professional work. And then even after the conversation was over and we stopped recording, we all felt that, like you felt that in the room. It's that I've never seen so many people of color on one panel talking about something like this specific, climate sustainability in film. Like it was just, that made me like this. I've been in this like work for years now, and I've never had that experience, and I really firsthand experienced the power of that, and the importance of that, and how we need more of those diverse voices, because they are like our community, the marginalized communities are on the forefront when it comes to all of the impacts of the climate change, and why aren't we listening to them more? And even like we mentioned in the very beginning, our First Nations communities or Indigenous communities, they like why aren't we listening to them more? Like why aren't we putting them on the forefront when it comes to these conversations on how to protect their lands that they've been working so hard to protect already? So yeah, I don't know what the question was, but I just this is something
you hit.
Like this is the kind of moment. Why aren't we seeing more diversity, more diverse voices, more diverse faces, more representation when it comes to these conversations, this movement?
It is super interesting to see the differences, we'll say, if ethnicities who are, in this field of work. And so I love and I honor what I represent, especially to someone who is much younger, like to the youth. Because in my past jobs, like, and we've been on Zoom, so I'll be on calls, and I am one of the very few, if any, like the only person of color and woman of color. And it's really interesting that the sustainability and environmental field is white centric. I don't know why. It's really interesting to see that it has played out that way, but I always want to give hope to especially women and people of color and minorities, that people, or that they can also have, careers in this. And I feel that, we're so focused on careers and what we do. And, there's stereotypes on Filipinos. So, the stereotype is for me to be in the medical field. And I really wanted to push, like, no, like, I don't have to. I know. And it's so hard. I know it's so hard because I had to fight with my family, and it's hard to fight. And I feel like, no one wants that confrontation. A lot of people go with what is easy or easy. And what is, what's familiar, and not going against, that grain, because it's just like the unknown, and the unknown can be so scary. And so I'm very happy that this is also a passion of yours, because it's really empowering. And I know what we both represent, for people who both see us.
Yeah, and like one thing that, like, when I was saying about this panel that we recorded after it was over, and we were talking, one of the panelists, who's a friend in the industry, he said it was so nice to see so many, like there were 3 Indians in that conversation, which is so rare in the film industry to begin with. But he said it felt lonely, like all these years that he's been in these conversations, it just felt lonely. Never have felt oppressed or have felt like neglected from these conversations, but it felt lonely. And to have that kind of like sense of, I don't know, it goes such a long way. Like it can get lonely too when you are one of the few, like you said, at your workplace, like not having more representation it's lonely, it's draining, it's a lot of responsibility. It's like you don't want to be that token person. Like it's just we need to normalize.
No.
And even like when it comes to on screen, like normalizing this normalizing, this on screen too. Like I had a conversation with a friend before about even like scenes set in like cafes or restaurants or whatever, people in the background, like you have actor, like your extras, like what we see in real like society, like why isn't that being modeled like on screen, like the diversity in where we live, and just all those little things. It goes even with storytelling. It's there's so much power in that.
No, I like how you said, yeah, I've been noticing, especially with everything, we'll say with all these movements that are happening, you'll see more diversity now. And so I'm always looking at commercials like, what is what ethnicity is that person? And it's really nice and refreshing to see people who are more like us, and having more light on them. I'm not exactly sure how much time I have, but if they cut us off, we'll see. But I will ask you at least one more question. What is something that students or people who do not have experience in sustainability production can do to learn more about sustainable production and integrate it into their careers?
Yeah, for sustainable production specifically?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. If you Google sustainable film production, you will get like an endless list of resources and tips and advice. And that's what I did, if I'm being honest. But also like finding events like the Hollywood Climate Summit and finding people that are involved in this and just like learning from them. Like I remember being that student that's like, oh my God, I know nothing about this, but let me just follow this person and see these resources. And so I work with Real Green. We have, like, if you just go on our website, realgreen.ca, we have everything, toolkits, videos, we have vendors, we have we link to other resources like the Green Production Guide, amazing website. We are Albert, so Albert in the UK, amazing resources and case studies they have as well. Really like just seeing what's out there and what's being shared already. And then even like what inspired me too in the beginning of my journey is watching those behind the scene videos that were done by like Sony Pictures, and I believe they have one in like Spider-Man and Earth Angel, like did that, and they're also like one of the sponsors. Like incredible people that are doing this work already and have been doing this work, and just I think starting with that is like reading those case studies and seeing what other productions are doing. All the toolkits, the resources, the tips are already out there for you to take and just run off with. There's no need to have to reinvent the wheel anymore. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for anyone in the industry, no matter what experience you hold or what scale of production you're on, whether it's a student film, an independent film, a large studio film. Like everything's out there for you to be successful in with your goals. It's just a matter of integrating it into your work and just asking those questions, like how, like adding that sustainability lens. How do I make this more sustainable, environmentally conscious, more like, and that it's sustainable, it's a good term to use because it goes across like environmentally, but also just bringing more diversity, inclusion on screen, and behind the screen, and representation and mental health, well-being. Like all this is connected, but that may be a lot for that very first. If I had to give one advice, that's a lot. So starting with what stands out to you and running off with, and there's no right way to do it.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's really good to point out that there's not a right way, a right or wrong way to be sustainable. And I like how you said it's what we do these days. It's like Google it. And it's true that like all the resources that you could possibly want is out there, and it's not hiding, and it's not, you don't have to pay for it necessarily. It's just that you have to really dig deep into it if you really want to know more.
Yeah,
and I think
again, we say accountability, right? And action. Like that's, again, at the end of the day, like everything is there. The information is there. The science is there. The tools are there. The technology is there. It's a matter of just taking that and now what are you doing? What are you doing today? And what are you doing tomorrow?
Thank you so much, Smiley. It was so great to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing. And
Thank
so I think
you.
we'll yes. Okay. I will talk to you soon.